I had a challenging counseling session the other day, and I'm still working through how to accept this notion of not being responsible for someone else's emotions. In theory, it's one thing, in practice, it's another. So, being accountable for your actions but not responsible for someone's emotions, I was getting hung up. I was getting like really just hung up on this thing of like, hey, if I were to do something that I know would hurt them, and even that part right there is difficult because you could say you don't know that it will hurt them. I mean, you're not them, right? Like, you don't know what they're thinking and feeling. You think you do, but you're just projecting a lot of the times how you would feel in that scenario. So part of it is just like, don't project your emotional response to that action onto somebody else. But I think a lot of the times you could safely bet if I punch this person in the face, they will be angry, maybe confused, maybe sad, maybe all those things, but they will most likely not be happy that you did that. Again, if you know the better you know the person, the more likely you are to understand how they will react in certain situations. Yet, despite your actions, you're not responsible for their emotions, which I understand, but again, in theory and practice, it's different. And I just had a huge stumbling block over this. And we were talking about personal boundaries as well, and I think like I understand why this topic got brought up and why we stayed on it until I was able to accept it in a certain way. Putting it into practice is going to be different, and I don't think it'll be something I need to put in practice very often. But it's kind of, I mean, part of what was being explained was like you can be accountable for your actions, just not responsible for their emotions. That's for them to work through. Those emotions are not yours. You can't do anything with them. You can't do anything with them. You can try to help as part of your accountability for your actions. You can make the amends you need to make if you hurt somebody. But ultimately, you don't get to decide whether emotionally they are repaired or not. If they've forgiven you, if you can move on together, or whatever. Like, you don't get to decide that. And in some cases, if you were to hurt somebody, they can get over that quicker than you can, the person who hurt them. Sometimes that happens. So, again, I understand the concept. It's just hard sometimes when you are aware that you made a mistake and you did something, an action that would hurt somebody, but you're not responsible for their emotions. It's just like a weird thing to kind of twist around. It's like, yeah, if I punch someone in the face, I'm accountable for that action. I might get charged with assault and have to face those consequences. But for how they feel, I can't be responsible for how they're feeling. I have created an opportunity for them that they didn't have before, though. I've created an opportunity for them to feel a bunch of things. And how they feel about it is going to be different. And I guess I have to go to extreme examples sometimes. But like, if I punched my friend in the face for no reason, I'm sure confusion is going to be one of those things. And I don't know necessarily how they'd react next. But if I was in an argument with someone and we were aggressive and I punched them in the face, they'd probably just start fighting back, depending on the person. If I went and punched a monk in the face, though, that person has maybe trained themselves to not respond emotionally. This goes to that thing I was talking about in the vlog. If we don't have an emotional contract, why is this an emotional transaction? It shouldn't be. So they might have trained themselves to not respond emotionally because they don't have an emotional contract with you. Whereas if someone that was a stranger came and punched me, I could still go and punch them without having that emotional contract, but like, again, I don't, like, how should I feel about that? What are the emotional feelings that I should feel about that? Any? None? I don't know. If we don't have an emotional contract, I probably shouldn't be feeling very emotional about it. But that's the thing. So Viktor Frankl, who wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning that I read in university, basically one of the big things that he was trying to get across as an idea was that, I mean, he was in the concentration camps. And so, like, imagine being stripped of all your freedoms and your choices and whatever. But he said, like, you could still retain the choice of how to react to the situation. He could choose to stand up straight or not stand up straight if his body allowed it. But I mean, like, emotionally, if he could speak, he could choose what words he decided to say. He chooses how he's going to process the opportunities. So you can train yourself, you can condition yourself to respond differently, emotionally different, like with certain stimuli. If someone gives you stimuli, if they say something to you or act or do something, that is just an opportunity to react, but you yourself retain the freedom of choice in how you will react, but do that enough times, you retain the choice in how you will feel. That's really hard, because we think if the person I love calls me a stupid idiot, that one, they probably know what they're doing, they probably know how it's going to feel for me, and also that there's a certain way that I'm going to feel. But you could feel differently. You could train yourself to not feel that thing in that moment for whatever that reason. You could slow down, you could take a breath. If you've trained yourself to do that before you react, even internally react. Because you could be saying to yourself in that moment, why would they say that? I'm calm right now. I'm confused. I'm not hurt yet because I don't know if that was their intention. I don't know, blah, 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 whatever. And that's really difficult, but it's a useful thing too. It works both ways, right? Like, 'cause if you are thinking you are responsible for someone else's emotions constantly, it might stop you from wanting to do or say things that need to be done or said. And also, you could carry someone else's weight, and you don't want to do that. Again, you might have to give someone an opportunity that's not a good opportunity for them to react to. And that's just life sometimes, and things need to happen. But talking this through actually helped me solidify this for myself, because, yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't understand how could I not be responsible for someone's emotions? If I did a thing that would make them feel a certain way, but it's like, okay, but you don't know how they're going to feel. And I get it. It's just hard at first to really get a handle on. But I have it now more than I did before. Again, there's problems when either way you go on that track of thinking that your emotions are someone else's responsibility, or that someone else's emotions are your responsibility, because they're not. That's for that person to deal with, or that's for you to deal with if they're yours, and no one else can do anything sometimes to console you or help you or make things. But again, the power of that, right? That no one can make things worse for you either sometimes emotionally. That they've given you an opportunity, and you have the power to take that opportunity and do something positive with it.